Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is your friend Dharam Singh. How are you going, guys? Hope you're doing great. Hey, I want to welcome my Mark Moser here. So he's so great. He accepted my invite, and he's going to share his knowledge. So very interesting topic today. Welcome, Mark. How are you going today?
Dharam, I'm doing well. It's so good to see you again.
Oh yeah, always pleasure. I saw you. I think December or
December, yes, right at
yeah.
the end of 2024.
December 2024, and you did your PfMP exam very soon after that. I think, yeah, 3rd of January 2025.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
time flies. It's
It
almost
was.
actually
It was
6 months.
a very quick turnaround from the time of taking your class to taking the exam to being able to come spend some time with you here this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you for accepting my invite. All right. So no further delays. So Mark is coming with lots of experience, director of project management office in Comporium.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in Charlotte, North Carolina, if you are familiar with in United States, it's more like eastern part of the United States, with the 15 years working in healthcare, telecom, corporate sector. So you have a reputation, you're building, establishing PMO from scratch. And yeah, a lot to talk about you. You work with C-suits, providing a dashboard, and we're going to talk about that dashboard, how the dashboard is helping. First is how you build and how you know, I'm going to ask questions on that. Mark, anything you want to say about yourself?
Uh, Thank you for a great introduction. My name is Mark Moser. As Dharam said, I'm based in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Project management was something I kind of fell into in being able to do. From my first experience in project management was starting a project management office.
Ah,
And so I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but I've learned a lot since then and had a number of different roles in different industries. So I'm really excited to be able to come and talk about it. Dharam and I were able to connect at the end of last year when I took one of his portfolio management professional training courses when I received that certification early in 2025, and it was a great course. Learned a lot. And added that certification to my belt that's helped me, ever since then with my current position as the project management offices director at Comporium. We are a telecommunications company. We offer high-speed internet, cable television, home security, and telephone services to residential and business customers. Currently operating with about 150,000 customers in our area.
very good, fantastic. Good to know. And I was saying, okay, I don't know much about the company. What is this? Okay, it's like Spectrum and AT&T, Verizon, Good. All right. Every day is learning for me. Perfect. Anyway, so once again, thank you, Mark, and thank you all of you. I'm very happy to support you in your journey of PfMP. As of now, 176 PfMP from 32 countries. Yeah, okay. It's around 8% of global number. Globally, around 2,300 PfMPs, which is growing now, and 559 PgMPs out of how many? Around 8,000. So around again, 78% of global number. They've gone through my program. And Mark, you're welcome. And next week I have a program in Dallas. If anybody is in Dallas or okay or like to visit Dallas, please let me know as soon as possible. And happy to have you in that program. It's a small class, but you will learn a lot. If not, if you are coming from Seattle area or that side, I'm running a program in July 7th, 8th, 9th of July in Seattle. So look, and to this, the topic we're talking here is about PMO setup, and I did one, just like you're preparing, you're doing certificate. I put myself into another certificate, PMOCP from PMI, and I did my certificate on 5th of June, not long ago. Actually, yeah, last week only. Yeah, a lot to learn. I did very short span without any guidance. Of course, I had to I'm the one who will prepare the material as well. And I'm running a PMI's pilot program. PMI asked me to run a pilot program for them because they built the ATP material. They want me to run the material and run with I think they have selected 15 people for it. They are not paid. People are getting free training for me, but I get paid for that. And I'm excited I was the first person to run the material and continue to use the material. I have program coming up in July and August. I will share those programs a little later and help you out. If you're interested, this is time for you to join because one is the fees I have reduced as the early bird price. You save $300 and end of June, you will be paying more. Anyway, so that's something we can figure it out. PMOCP is interesting. Whatever you learn, Mark, you did, learn from yourself, by reading books here and there. And PMI has done a good job in creating this practice guide for, this the setting the PMO. It was eye-opening for me because I used to think, oh, PMO support structure, 3 types of PMOs, controlling and supporting and this and that. And then when I'm going through this, okay, there are more than 30 types of PMOs. Wow. And strategic PMO and, transformation office and departmental PMO and you name it, every type of PMOs. So you get to learn about them. And the main thing you learn if you are a consultant, you can do the PMO assessment of an organization and find out, the maturity, and you probably can guide them from here to there. Anyway, so these are the topic I'm going to talk in my webinar with Kim on 2nd of July. So Kim is, she is a PMI person. She has been, earlier she was part of PgMP and PfMP. And now she moved, not now, last year she moved to the PMO, saying about this thing. And she said, okay, Dharam, if you want to run a PMO CP webinar, she will be talking from the PMI point of view. I will be talking about my experience as a exam and my experience of learning and, that's whatever I do. So if you have not joined, please join that program. You will learn a lot and you will be able to get maybe some code or something at the time. All right. And I do have the PDU code. I will be giving the PDU code somewhere at the end of the program. And I like to see that you stay in there and listen to us. And if you are joining as watching the recording, this will be recorded. This is being recorded. It will be put on the YouTube. If you're watching this between now and next year, 2026, June 26th, you will be able to claim the PDU code as well. So if you have watched the video between now and 26, send an email and happy to share the PDU code. All right. So let me start my first question, and I can see lots of people joining today and lots of people coming from, past experience. Okay. Mark, what were the first 3 steps you took when setting up PMO at Comporium and why they were critical for you?
Yeah, that's great. And as I mentioned, I've had the opportunity on 2 different occasions to be able to set up a project management office. I learned a lot the first time not following a lot of these steps. And so when I had the ability to be able to come into my role that I'm currently in right now, I had a game plan already in terms of what I wanted to do. And, I really kind of took a look at it from the standpoint of 3 steps to set it up. First of which was getting alignment from our stakeholders within the company, and then producing a charter from that alignment. Being able to make sure that you were going to be able to interview all of the stakeholders within the company, people that you knew you were going to be interacting with on a regular basis, even in some instances helping them understand what a project management office is and what the goal of it was, so that they had a better understanding of how we could support what they were doing. And then amongst all of those interviews that you're doing, you start developing some common themes that you start hearing from each of them, different inputs that they have, things that are overlapping that you're able to do, and understanding kind of where the company's strategic goals, how they touch those particular stakeholders in the groups that they represent. And then from that point, you start really kind of compiling everything that you need to be able to put together a departmental charter. And so it does differentiate from what you would do from a charter that you would do for a project or for a program, because you're really outlining, what your mission, your scope, what services you're going to offer, how you're going to measure success, how you're going to do that for your particular department. So we've able to put that together. I believe when we finished that, it ended up being about 11 or 12-page document. We tried to be really thorough and detailed while also leaving it a little bit open-ended as well too, right? You don't want to be able to have something that's going to be so regimented that's not going to allow you at least a little bit of flexibility as your PMO matures. And then at that point, it was getting all of those stakeholders that you interviewed and you talked to before. You're having to collaboratively meet with them, walk through the charter with them so that they have an understanding of what the expectation is of what you are doing with your job. And so that helps give a lot of credibility right off of the bat with what you're going to do and working with those stakeholders. It starts to reduce some of the resistance that exists from those stakeholders, because look, quite frankly, when you walk into an endeavor like this, not everybody thinks you need to be there. They think what they're doing is working just fine. They don't see any issues with it. They don't understand it. Maybe they thought that the PMO was going to roll up under their channel to be able to do. So you're helping to take some of that down. But really the main function of having that charter is like you have that North Star now, right? You have something that you are looking at, that you're guiding towards, that when in doubt and we don't know exactly what to do, you can always refer back to that charter and say, is this meeting our department initiative of what we're trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
So from there, once you've got your charter, you kind of go into step two. And step two, you're doing as you're going through step one as well too for that development of the charter. But while you're talking to those stakeholders, you're assessing where everything currently stands. You're getting an understanding of the projects that they're working on, that they're involved with. Maybe you're talking to people who are going to be the sponsors of certain projects. They're telling you about things that they have coming up in the next quarter, or things that they're working on, trying to get into the budget for the next year. So you're taking inventory of all of these projects that are actively going on, and things that may be coming up in the future. You're also getting a chance to assess and evaluate the maturity of their management of the projects. One of the things that's very unique about where I work now is that when I started, the company had been in existence for 126 years. And so there is a lot that has built up over time in terms of how people have done this. And so to have something that's formalized in terms of having a PMO, it's it was definitely a change for the organization. But they also had a lot of things that were deeply rooted in how they managed projects, some good, some not. And it's your responsibility as the governing person of that PMO to be able to flush that out and figure out what that's going to look like through those. And then as you're going through and you're learning more about these projects, you're asking questions of, well, how are you tracking that? How do you know when a due date is? Who is setting the due date? Who's responsible? Who's getting an update on the status of this? What happens if you don't meet your deadline dates? What happens if you spend more than what you've budgeted. Where do you get that money from? You start learning a lot of these kind of steps along the way, and you're just kind of putting it away in the back of your mind of, well, these are the things that seem to be working well. These are the areas where there's some deficiencies. And how can you be able to do that? Because, like I said, as a very tenured organization that I came into this, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. How could we make sure that that people are being able to do what it is that they are doing, and they're doing well, and they feel comfortable doing it, but maybe you're tweaking some things a little bit to maybe improve how they're managing those projects. Making sure that you've got something that you're tailoring how you're going to run this PMO, so that there's a value proposition to it, right?
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit more about this and some of the other things that we'll discuss, but how do you start to turn what types of projects are actively going on, and not only being able to offer an avenue to be able to standardize how you're running those projects, how to report on them, but also starting to think about how are we getting involved in the strategy with all of this? How are we making the PMO a strategic partner of the organization and the executive team that you're working on? And then also, as you're just collecting all of this information as well, too, you're starting to gather a baseline. You're starting to see that, hey, these types of projects, when these groups are involved, you're hitting that schedule target every time. It seems like when this group is involved, you've got a lot of gold-plated projects, and the scope is starting to creep as you're starting to work with some of those. And so those are just kind of things that you're learning throughout that process. Lastly, what I would say in answering this is you start to form the level of governance of how your PMO is going to operate. You're going to start to try to determine kind of what everybody's role is within these projects. And that can range from everything of who is submitting the projects, what type of information are you submitting as a part of that project, who is going to be the one who receives that submission, to start to kind of validate the business case and your strategic alignment. We built in a scoring system in terms of how much value does this project provide to the company, from a cost standpoint, and from a timing standpoint. How much value are you going to get? And you start weighing that against some risks, whether that's identified by the person who's submitting the idea for the project, or as you're starting to flush it out a little bit more, perhaps starting to build a case for your charter. And so as we started to kind of formalize this process and trying to make it very visual, you'll hear me talk a lot about dashboards as we go through this presentation. Part of what we're putting together is, we have this funnel to have project submissions be able to come in. Well, what does that dashboard look like? Who do we want looking at that dashboard? How are we tying the strategic initiatives to what they can see? Because you have certain C-suite executives who are interested in some strategic initiatives, and others that are interested in other ones, right? Depending on what funnels of the business that they're responsible for. And so, how are you kind of getting those in place so they can see the information that they want? You can start to better plan and allocate your resources for that. And it's giving them more of that bird's eye view about how that is coming in. And so, giving it that level of governance of, this is how we're starting, really starts to permeate all throughout the process, and allows you to be able to align that governance in a more strategic fashion along the way. So I know that was kind of a long-winded, explanation to your question, Dharam, but really, three ways to be able to, that I think that I looked at to be able to do that. That was, creating the department charter, getting a current assessment of where you're at, and then creating that foundation of governance for your PMO.
Great, thank you very much. It's a good explanation of anyone who's looking to start setting up a PMO, what they should be doing and what steps they should be having a PMO charter, and you have shared with the various stakeholders, make sure they are aligned with that, the expectation, strategic alignment, and then working with your stakeholder roles and responsibilities. And then you talked about how to set up all those criteria. It's like a portfolio management. I see your PMO is more like portfolio management,
Yes.
where the selection happen, which project to be done, which not to be done, based on the strategic alignment. Okay, great. So thank you. My next question is, can you share how dashboard, we talked with you touched about, how that dashboard reporting to C-suite influences decision making at your organization?
You're not going to find a bigger proponent of reporting dashboards than me. If anything, the hard work that you put into creating the dashboards is going to significantly reduce your time in the future of having to provide status reports, updates, and answer maybe what you would find is some very basic questions. And putting in that effort on the front end to be able to create those dashboards is going to take you a lot further than you think. So sometimes when you're doing that and you're initially putting them together, it feels a little painful to be able to do it, but just know that if you take the time and the effort at the beginning to be able to do it, it's worthwhile. It's no different than the planning of your project, right? The more time that you're going to spend on being able to plan your projects, the better that you're going to fall into that execution phase, and your monitoring maybe time maybe even more limited as well. But we use the reporting dashboards because my goal was really to be able to try to take everything that we are doing and tracking as a project through our PMO and just having data-driven decisions. I mean, that when you boil it down to it, we want to make decisions based on what the information is telling us. And so what we were able to do is very easily start to put together projects that we had in our pipeline and aligning them with our strategic goals so that we can say, hey, for strategic goal number 1, this is how we're doing for the year and trying to be able to reach our goal. Strategic goal number 2, these are the projects that are associated with it. This is what we're trying to do. So you're aligning those strategic goals with your projects. You also are going to, put in those basic health metrics, right? You're measuring the statuses, you're measuring how much you've spent, how you're related to the schedule, and what you're doing with that. If you've got a good tool to be able to build those dashboards from, it's going to be able to help you with your resource allocation. You're able to start to track different resources that you have, what their skills are, what types of skills are needed for certain projects. And so then you can start to better plan. In our case, we're working with other work groups to be able to say, hey, we've got this project coming up. These are the skills that we need. We see that maybe you have these 2 individuals that are doing it. We know these individuals are currently working on these projects. This one's slated to finish their part of their project in a month. This one's slated to be able to finish it in 6 weeks. Can we get one of these resources to be able to start on our project, which is going to begin next quarter? So you start to be able to get that resource utilization, and it's right there, and it's easy for you to see based on the work that they're doing. And one thing that we found that was super helpful for our company was our dependencies and interdependencies of projects. And one of the things that I brought to the organization when I first came and implemented this PMO was helping everyone with the understanding of, we actually run a lot of programs, and everybody was just always referring to everything as a project. Well, we had so many programs that were running that were dependent on 4 or 5 projects, And the way that they were initially numbering all of these projects, there might be one person in the whole company that knows that these 4 or 5 projects are dependent upon one another. And so being able to visually show those dependencies of those projects was a real game changer for us, because it allowed us to be able to use that resource utilization and plan better about how those resources were gonna be able to be used. And so being able to make those decisions in real time. This is not you giving your boss a report at the end of the month of, is it red, yellow, or green? This is how much we're done. This is our anticipated end date. You've got something now that is dynamic, and your boss can look at it at any point in time, because your boss also doesn't just have a monthly meeting with their boss. Their boss might walk in their office and ask a specific question. So being able to train all of these individuals on how to use the dashboards, what do they need to see? What kind of information is important to them? We're able to be able to do that. And again, it starts to align back in with, how does the PMO become not something that just provides the information or the update, checks the box? How are you a strategic partner? How do you start to put some of this stuff together where they're going to say, hey, Mark, we are going to plan to do this big project in 2027. These are the types of skills that we're need based on what we have in our portfolio. Are we going to have the resources available to be able to do that at the beginning of 2027? And if not, how can we reprioritize what we're doing? So you starting to really become somebody that your executive team, your management team is looking at you and saying, they're going to help me get the right people in the right place so that we're going to get to our end goal.
Very good, very good. And you said it's a dynamic real-time dashboard, or?
Yes.
And
we use a software tool now that we have dashboards built off of individual portfolios, multiple portfolios linked together, where we're tracking everything from cost, schedule, status, dependency. You're looking at things based on Gantt charts and roadmaps, how all of that is aligning together. And so when we start putting plans together for projects, putting the plan together for the project and outlining that in our tool is only just the first step of what we're doing. Once we've got that plan outlined of how we're going to track that project, the next step of it is how are we building that dashboard so that we're getting everybody the right information that they need to be able to do it. That they've really become synonymous with one another.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, even more important, having real-time data, real-time visibility. Is like you're flying a plane, and you see the dashboard information in front of you, like now, like how engine performing, air pressure, oxygen, this and that. So you can take decision at the time rather than waiting for 7 days, 6 days before a meeting happen, and it may be too late by this time. So, great.
We have a wide variety of different types of projects that we do, everything from technical projects, networking projects, to actual construction, digging ditches in the ground projects. And so you have teams that are out in your field, literally in the field. They're actively working. And when they have finished their job, they have the ability from their phone to say, I'm done. I'm done with my task. Like, that stuff has always been so important, because what they were doing before is that person would have to come back, explain to somebody what they did. That person might have to go check something off somewhere. Well, what if the person they come back and tell had already left for the day, or they're on vacation for the week? All of a sudden now you have this stuff that maybe forgets to be told. Maybe it doesn't get updated for a week. And now you're doing stuff in real time, and managers are better able to get their people in the right place at the right time.
Perfect. I mean, this is the future. Rather, now it should be happening. Most of your kind of work where people are going, fixing things, and that's operational work as well, project work as well, and on the spot. I'm a manager, I can see how things going with various team members. That's great. So if anybody is interested in something like this, I do have a access to one of the platform called VXDCC. It's coming from VXO Digital. And if you want more information, please send me message, email. Happy to organize a demo or something. You can see how what Mark is talking about, it can be real, up and running in few days. So that's creative. Okay, I do have questions, couple of questions. Thanks guys for questions. Okay, so Tamara, thank you. Have you ever been able at a company that has a department that does the function of a PMO, but doesn't really think of themselves as PMO? And how do you keep moving the work forward? Another question within that, do you just go with the words they use, even if it's sort of PMO?
So, I mentioned I've started 2 PMOs. The very first one that I ever started, I didn't know I was starting it. I didn't know that we were operating as a PMO. I worked in a healthcare environment where we had customers that we were working with. We were offering healthcare services, and so my role was working specifically with initial projects to get those customers up off the ground and implemented from a kind of an end of sales cycle to a beginning of operation. And what kind of happened with that is we knew that we were doing those projects, and then all of a sudden people start coming to your office and saying, hey, we need to install a new software. We need to outfit an existing suite that we have to upgrade the technology in there. Can you help us manage these projects? They knew we were building these project plans and keeping schedules and things of that nature, and we didn't think anything of it, right? We were just the people in the company that were running the projects, and so you start to be able to do that, and slowly over time we started building in some level of governance in terms of what we were doing, and you're building it in, and then you say, oh, we should actually write that down so that it's something that we will continue to do forever. If you don't necessarily have a PMO and you're not officially titled as a PMO, I guess my best suggestion that I would do is to learn about what it does take for PMO governance. And even though you might not be labeled as such, you might want to start working in that capacity. When you start putting all of that together, you've got that framework that is there, that if you ever one day decide to say, hey, I want to present the fact that we're going to turn this into an official PMO, you've got all of those things in place.
Yeah, and I will recommend you guys to, if you are your PMI member, download this document called Practice Guide for PMO. Basically, that's your Bible for PMO CP exam, along with ECO, which I referred. And it has at the back of the book, which is addendum, which is talking about, maturity assessment and some steps required for you to how to set up various steps. And one of the interesting thing I like in that in this book is, they're talking about how evolve from the very beginning to deploying and, starts using the services and start realizing the value. So there's a lot to learn from that. So if anybody, as I mentioned, if you're interested, I mentioned a couple of programs in July. If you're interested, please look into that. It's very reasonably priced at the moment. And I want to see how everybody, go through the program. I've done so many PgMP PfMP program. I think this is going to be interesting 2 days program, and you need to show only 10 hours of training, which, like unlike in PMP, 35 hours, here is only 2 days or 10 days, 10 hours. Okay, and another question I have is, how many weeks took to establish a PMO and setting up the governance structure for you?
So in my current position that I was in now, I was the initial person that was hired to be able to do that. I operated solo for the first 18 months that I was here. which is, is a little daunting in terms of what you have to do to try to be able to put together. I guess selfishly enough, I got the opportunity to be able to do what I really wanted to do in terms of being able to try to set that up, matching it up with what your stakeholders and your executive team want, of course, as well. But slowly we have added more project managers to our team. What it really did allow us to be able to do is that when we started adding those project managers to our team, we had a foundation that was there for them. I mean, the very first thing I do when we have a new project manager that starts as a part of the PMO is I give them the charter. That your first task as a new employee on your first day is to read this charter. I will give them an hour's worth of time, let them take notes, highlight whatever they need to do. They come back in, and then we start to discuss how our department is set up, what the framework of it is, and how we succeed. So you don't always have to start with a large group of people. Now, if you have a larger organization that you're part of, that may be a necessity that you have to be able to do. But being able to build something that was grassroots with the size organization that we have, I would have loved to have had project managers maybe after a year instead of 18 months. But we could onboard them a lot easier because that framework was already in place.
Yeah. 18 months, I know it seems long time, but some of the strategic important program PMO can take that long. One is to show them the value, because when you start talking about initially talking like expense, because you're not adding any value, and they need to see that having a right PMO will add value in running the project more efficiently, effectively, getting the data, correct data at right time. And once the realization happens, then you get more and more support, and then you grow and mature, and more improvement can happen at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, I did learn PMOCP.
That's right.
But yeah, not every PMO can take or will take 18 months, and some of them can be set up within a few months, or maybe a few weeks. It depends if you're running a big program, and you have existing maturity in organization, so you can probably get set up a PMO level, a program level PMO within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Depends. Okay, so my next question: what lessons have you learned from managing large-scale ERP or enterprise-wide initiatives?
Yeah, great question. Anybody who's ever been involved with an ERP installation, they know what some of the challenges are that exist, and the list can be really long, and of course different for everything. But my involvement and what I had with it was, one of the things that I learned in doing that that I would take forward is the appropriate planning of when to get stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes when there is an ERP installation, there's an initial assessment of what departments is this going to touch, who is going to be kind of really involved with a lot of this, and the idea is that, well, we got to get all of those people together and make sure that they're informed in everything along the way with that. And I think that the saturation, I guess, for lack of a better term, of those stakeholders can become really daunting. You have now all of a sudden a lot of people who feel like they have a say in the decision making process, and maybe you allow them to have that say, but there's some fatigue that comes along with all of that decision making that has to go. The engagement that you start to get out of people over time starts to wane, and the quality of that engagement isn't as good. And then there's a real burnout effect that comes from that too, right? An ERP installation is a very daunting program to be able to take on. And now if you start involving all of these stakeholders that are in it, they are so wrapped up in what you're doing, they start to lose sight of maybe what they're doing for their regular job, or they're trying to balance both at the same time, and that burnout really does happen. So being able to try to sequence how you're bringing those people in to that part of your program, of what you're putting it in. You get them more focused, you get a more meaningful decisions and conversations and dialogue from them. They're more responsive. They're more prepared for the change. They're better suited to be able to talk to their people about what that installation change is going to mean for them and for their work. So I've found that, really being able to try to plan that up front is one of the best things that you can do. Change management, I think, is, for any project, program, portfolio, anything. I don't think it's something that's talked about enough, about how important the change is, and especially when you're talking about an ERP install. Now, if you're moving from one system to another, some of the changes might be minimal, some of the changes might be a lot. It might be very different. And so I think that it's something that you've got to incorporate that change in from the beginning. You've got to have people who are, specifically having the role of being those change managers, those change agents, to keep people informed about what types of changes they may see and what's coming. Having trainers who are really knowledgeable, who can help not only train new users, but also being able to manage what the change is. So it's not knowing just the new of what they're doing, but it's also understanding what that user may be currently doing, and how those two marry together. Lastly, I think the thing that is the most important, from what I have seen, is how important the data is. I've been involved with ERP installations where there's been a lot of proactive work that has been done with data. In one instance, up to a year in advance that it began, to be able to get your data in the right place. I've also been in situations where it's been 30 days that pre-work with data has done, and you can really see the difference of how that project is progressing based on where that data lies. It's such a critical value to that. So, as I was harping on when I was answering the last question about, taking that extra time to plan, that extra time to build a dashboard, to prepare, to make it easier. It's the same thing that goes with data with those ERP installs. Like, the more time you can spend with that data, getting it right before you even get started, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, important to have right steps and the preparation work. You don't want to start and realize you should have done something differently.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Do all the prep work, do all the, yes, ERP kind of work can be huge, implementing, and especially large organization. But a lot of due diligence required, a lot of interaction required, stakeholder engagement required. It's a lot to learn from these kind of programs.
Yes.
Great. So my next question to you, Mark, how do you train and support non-certified project managers or the team members in adopting PMI standards? And I know you are a big fan of PMI standard. You learn a lot, and especially if you apply this and you expect your staff to, or your project manager to also familiar with PMP or PgMP, whatever.
Yeah, it's a great question. Not everybody who's going to be a project manager is going to be a PMI certified project manager. And a lot of people probably don't even know that they're working as a project manager, but that's part of what their job is and what they're doing. And so a big part of what we have is in our charter for our governance model is the education of employees within our current company for in project management. So we train a lot of people in different project management practices. We have 5 individuals in the company who are PMP certified. They work in various departments. None of them actually as project managers, but they have PMP certification. One of the things that I have been able to leverage with those individuals is that they do act as more of a coach for other individuals who are working as actual real project managers. And that could be IT related, it could be construction related, it could be from our networking team, our cybersecurity team, a lot of different ways where we've got project managers who are out in our fields working. But we've got these individuals who, really I look for them as maybe not necessarily the specific practice of what they're doing for project management, but the foundation that they learned as a PMP certified practitioner. What is PMI? I know that I've got those individuals who are out there, and including myself as well, as a PMP. We can give that foundation where we're using the same vernacular. We are, kind of looking at things from the same idea and the same approach, and that's really what we're trying to build with our people. I do provide a book for everybody. I will drop it in the chat here the next time we have, so that if you are coming across an instance where you're working with individuals who are project managers, but maybe they're not officially project managers, it is called Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager by Cogan, Blackmore, and Wood. It's about 180 pages long, and it is a real great foundation for them to be able to use, to give them almost kind of a PMP crash course in terms of how to be able to work. It's an easy read. So I highly recommend that to be able to share with anybody in your organization that might be working in that unofficial project manager capacity. So we're really working on that coaching method that we're doing. We're building a lot of tools and have a lot of tools in place for those project managers to be able to use. It helps create the standardization. It's everything from guides on how to properly run kickoff meetings, how to set up your project plans in our project management software. We look at it as, hey, we've got 7 key elements that we want to capture for every project. Anything else you want to do is great, but you have to capture these 7 pieces of information. Helps flow into our dashboards, makes all of that reporting a lot easier to be able to do. Everything from stakeholder engagement tools, communications tools, different ways that they've got these templates that somebody can just pick something up and say, oh, that's a communication plan. What project is it for? That's what they're looking at. If they've got those easy things to be able to do, and then, like I explaining before, just knowing that they've got somebody to be able to lean on. The PMO is here to be able to help and assist. I had somebody in my office last week. I got a new computer, and she told me, I'm thinking about going for my PMP exam. Hey, that is great. I am here to help. And so she was bringing me a computer, and I left with her with a stack of material about how she can best prepare to be able to start working on her application for her PMP exam. And so being able to just have that kind of close contact interaction where somebody knows that, hey, this person is not necessarily my colleague, they're not my boss, but they're my mentor. And we want to be able to try to create that kind of coaching mentorship amongst our project managers.
It's fantastic. The way you're bringing your team members or your company, other project managers, is fantastic, because utilizing those 5 other PMPs and mentoring the other PMPs or not project managers, great. But and also making sure they have required resources available. One thing I can also tell you, I have launched my app called vCare PM Exam Mentor. I put a description on the chat as well. This is covering almost all the certificates, mainly at the moment PMP, PgMP, PfMP, RMP, ACP, which comes with glossaries, formulas, and practice questions, and videos, and in a task. So people who don't know, let's say they are not doing like PMP, but at least they were running a project, they can actually download and learn from the glossary, learn from the formulas, learn from some of the basic things which you have available on your fingertips, basically. So I encourage anybody you preparing for PMP, PgMP, or PfMP, or RMP, ACP. This can be a wonderful tool for you. So look for that, and I have given the mention there. vCare PM Exam Mentor. I'm sure you're going to love it. People are using it. I'm getting great feedback on that. Okay. Perfect. Any questions? Okay, no more questions here. But let me ask the question here. In your view, what makes PMO high impact in today's business environment?
I think it's a great time to be able to answer this question, because 10 years ago with PMOs, I don't know if they could really fully say that they were doing some things that were maybe high impact. It was more of from a reporting standpoint, what's being done, what's behind, why is it behind. PMOs have been evolving here recently and are taking on much more of that strategic approach, finding ways to have that seat at the table with management teams to be able to help make those data-driven decisions. And so that now you're starting to lead with that strategy while also still continuing to support it like PMOs have always done in the past. And so from all of the information that you're collecting and that you're gathering about your projects, like I said, you're starting to be able to build some of these dashboards. You've got some of that real-time reporting. You're better able to understand kind of how you fit into your organization's planning cycles, how capital is being allocated, right? Better ways to be able to budget funds, budget resources, and being able to be able to prioritize your things better. You've got a better understanding of hey, we've got these projects, we're lining them with our strategic initiatives. Maybe you have some strategic initiatives that really outweigh other ones that you have. You can really start to make recommendations about how to be able to prioritize those. That's going to be able to help get you in a place to be able to make sure that you're doing the right work. You're not just doing work, you're doing the right work. You really shouldn't be looking at doing any projects that do not fit into a strategic initiative. Now, unless your CEO says we need to be able to do this, you've got some instances where that does happen. But every project that is in your portfolio, you should be able to tie back to one of your strategic initiatives in terms of how you're trying to be able to make that work. And so being able to, pull all of that information together so that you're, realizing the benefits that you're getting out of some of these projects, you're starting to see the adoption of not only how your PMO works, but what the outcomes and the outputs of your projects are. They might be impacting your coworkers, your internal customers. If you work in organizations where you have external customers, you might be seeing how that's impacting them, and it's creating better efficiencies within your organization. You might be working on things that are helping to grow revenue. You start looking at some of those things that are more outcome based. You're going to start to be able to see how your PMO and how you're shaping it can be real high impact.
Yeah, not only outcome based, but benefit based, value based.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. Great. Thank you for explaining. Thank you for coming today, all of you. I appreciate your contribution, asking questions, and most importantly, Mark, getting ready for this kind of session is not easy, and it takes time and effort to take you away from your work life, and you did well. Your answer was really, you did took time to answer each and every question with, it's like a, suggesting, in something, and that is coming from your experience. So you do have experience. You did really well. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Dharam, thank you very much for inviting me today. I had a lot of fun.
Great. I should see you soon in my PgMP class.
That's right.
All right, guys. Any last minute question? And if you want to reach out to me, of course, you know how to reach out. There's a way. Dharam, talk to Dharam. Simple. Talk to Dharam.com. www.talktodharam.com. And I'm sure Mark, if Mark is maybe available for any questions or clarification, and Mark can be available on LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay, great. So thank you very much. And I will see you again. Actually, before I go, next webinar on 26th of June with Jay. Jay is my PgMP and PfMP student. He's coming from Army. He's a senior officer, commander, and he's a very smart person and active duty and all those things. You will learn a lot. So I'm very happy to have him here. And on 26th, please join and learn from him as well. All right. Take care, guys.